The downtown is the most important neighborhood of any city. Indianapolis is a city of 400 to 500 neighborhoods, and the one neighborhood that belongs to everyone who lives here is the downtown. It's where we come together in community.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today I'm joined by Jim Morris, the Vice Chair of Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Jim became president of the Indiana Pacers almost 20 years ago, then in 2014 moved into his current role with Pacers Sports and Entertainment, the engine behind the city's NBA and WNBA franchises. Jim's steady hand guiding the Pacers in fever is admirable, but it barely scratches the surface of Jim's influence in Indianapolis and around the world. Jim's importance to our city goes back almost 60 years, when he graduated from Indiana University and became Chief of Staff for Mayor Richard Lugar. Jim was just 24 years old then when he worked with Mayor Lugar to usher in Unigov, the merger of city-county government that put Indianapolis on the positive trajectory that it's been on ever since. In his 6 years with Mayor Lugar, Jim also had a hand in the creation of IUPUI in downtown Indianapolis and the development of Market Square Arena, which was the first cog in the city's now decades-old sports movement. When Jim left the Lugar administration to work for Lilly Endowment in 1973, it wasn't the end of his work building Indianapolis into the city it is today. Far from it. At the endowment, Jim had a hand in the development of the Hoosier Dome, bringing the Colts to Indianapolis and creating the Indiana Sports Corporation and the city's amateur sports strategy. After 16 years in various roles at the endowment, including 6 years as president, Jim left for the less glamorous but no less important job of leading the Indianapolis Water Company. After 13 years with the city's water utility, Jim had an opportunity to do something he cared deeply about and do it on the biggest stage possible. Jim accepted an appointment to serve as Executive Director of the United Nations World Food Program, the largest humanitarian agency in the world. For 5 years, Jim and his wife Jackie traveled the world, giving a boost to the neediest people on the planet and doing globally what he had done so often locally, serving the needy and vulnerable. After that life-changing experience, Jim, a native of Terre Haute, returned to Indiana, joined the Pacers, and quickly jumped back into civic and board activities. He served several terms on the Indiana University Board of Trustees and was treasurer of the U.S. Olympic Committee. He is or has been on the National Advisory Board for the Boy Scouts of America and the boards of the U.S. Gymnastics Federation, the Riley Children's Foundation, One America, Old National Bank, Holman & Company, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jim graduated from Indiana University, where he studied political science and completed his MBA at Butler University. Jim is also the winner of a long list of awards, including IBJ's Michael A. Carroll Award and Indiana's highest honor, the Sachem Award, which is reserved for Hoosiers whose virtue and lifetime accomplishments have significantly benefited the lives of Indiana residents. Here's our conversation. Jim, welcome to Off the Record Podcast. It's an honor to have you. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I just mentioned that you've won numerous awards, both local and national, and congratulations on an award you just received during All-Star Weekend, the Jerry Colangelo Award, which recognizes people who have exhibited character, leadership, faith, and achievement on and off the court. As you look back, Jim, is there one honor among all of these awards that you might treasure the most?
Well, I suppose the greatest honor or award has been my wife, Jackie, of 59 years. The best thing that ever happened to me. We have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, all great kids. We're blessed beyond anything we could have ever expected. But I've had the incredible good fortune of working with some extraordinary people that sort of led to my good fortune. But to work with Dick Lugar for 6 years and then to work with the Lilly Endowment for 16 years with Tom Lake and Tom Lofton and Dick Ristine, Landrum Bowling, incredible people. And then the great time at the Water Company with Bob McConnell, terrific. And then I had the privilege of working with Kofi Annan when I was Undersecretary of the UN. My responsibilities were with the World Food Program. Nothing more rewarding could ever have come to me, something I thoroughly enjoyed doing, but almost beyond my comprehension, that responsibility. And then to come back now be with Herb and Mel Simon and the family with the Pacers. I helped them buy the team 40, 50 years ago, and we've been close to the Pacers and the Fever ever since. So the blessings that have come my way are beyond anything I could have ever expected or deserved, for that matter.
Well, you're modest, and you don't want to talk about your awards, but I know well-deserving of all of them. But I want to talk a little bit about something that just happened here. Usually I start interviews talking about early career and how you got your start, Jim, and I will. But given that we're just coming off of Indy's hosting of NBA All-Star Weekend, I have to ask your early reflections on what this meant for the city of Indianapolis and the Pacers organization.
Well, it was remarkable. The sports strategy over the years was designed to change the city's reputation around the world, to emphasize the importance of the downtown community. But the Pan Am Games brought 40,000 volunteers together to build a community. The sporting event was almost incidental, very important for a lot of reasons. But the NBA All-Star Game, 6,000 volunteers focused on the well-being of the community, changing the reputation, inclusive as humanly possible, involving activities in all 92 counties, huge rewards for many youth-serving agencies, especially the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. The Indiana Special Olympics were the two main beneficiaries, but legacy programs all across the state. So the sporting events are fun, they're exciting, they're enjoyable, they bring people together. But at the end of the day, when you have an activity that brings people from every corner of the community together in common cause to do something together to build community, that's the real reason for doing it. So the NBA All-Star Game was a three-pointer, or maybe I should say a home run for our city, as was the College Football Championship, as are the Final Four games, both men and women, that we have on our regular basis. And obviously we're looking forward to the NBA playoffs this year. We've got a great Pacer team, and we're excited about that.
You sure do. It's an exciting team. But the All-Star Game, I was lucky enough to attend some of the events, and it really did show off the city of Indianapolis like really nothing else can, just in terms of the coverage and what downtown looked like and the opportunity to draw people downtown from all over.
Indianapolis, when we've taken on these opportunities for a city our size to host as many Final Fours as we have, to host the Pan American Games, to host Olympic trials, to host the College Football Championship, to do all the Big Ten, all the Horizon League tournaments. For a city our size, we've had 500-600 national, international championships. For a city our size to do it with the commitment to doing it better than it's ever been done anywhere else, and to take most of the events to a new tier, to increase the significance, the importance, the quality of the event. I think in 1980, when we did the Final Four, we took it to a new level, and we continue to do that every time we have a chance to do something like the NBA All-Star Game. Adam Silver was here for the whole event. The remarkable man, the most impressive, humble commissioner in all of professional sports, but he was overwhelmed with the generosity, the welcoming nature of our city, and how much extra we went the extra mile to make it spectacular.
Jim, kind of staying on a similar subject, you've always been a constant and continue to be a constant advocate of the need for a strong and vibrant downtown. Tell us why having such a strong downtown, vibrant downtown is important for the success of our entire region and our entire state from your perspective.
Well, the downtown is the most important neighborhood of any city. Indianapolis is a city of 400 to 500 neighborhoods, and the one neighborhood that belongs to everyone who lives here is the downtown. It's where we come together in community. When you visit any city in the world, your impression of the vitality, the excitement, the dynamism of the downtown is formed by your impression of the downtown. So it's the most important community in our city. It's where we come together. It's where we build community. It's the heart of the tax base. It's the heart of our employment. I can remember when Indianapolis did not have a hotel, had 2 or 3 restaurants. Today, there are 81,500 people employed in central Indiana in the downtown in hospitality, entertainment, tourism, sports, recreation. The transformation, because of the commitment to do things together downtown, is overwhelming. When I came back, Herb said, "Jim, why don't you come work with the Pacers for a while?" And we were coming off that unhappy experience in Detroit. And I said, why would I do this? And the more I thought about it, everything that I care about, reducing adversarial relationships, everybody in Indianapolis wants the Pacers, the Colts, the Indians, the Fever to do well. If our coaches and our players do their job well, they inspire kids, especially kids that need more caring adults in their lives. So today that we play New Orleans tonight, there'll be a story in every paper in the world tomorrow about our game with New Orleans tonight. So it's transformed our reputation. It is the essence of bringing people together. It's the essence of inspiring young people, and it's the heart of our economy. At the end of the day, the success of IBJ or the success of Indiana Purdue University is based on our ability to bring bright young people to live here, to work here. And the best young reporters or the best young physicians or scientists at Eli Lilly and Company, they can work anywhere in the world. And to the degree that they'll come to Indianapolis, they'll want to come to this vibrant place, Lilly will be successful. And when Lilly's successful, we all benefit.
No doubt. Let's take a quick break. This is Off the Record Podcast.
Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with the Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand podcast. Available now at InsideIndianaBusiness.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Off the Record Podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking with Jim Morris, Vice Chair of Pacer Sports and Entertainment. Well, Jim, I want to turn to the beginning of your career. After graduating from IU, your career started at the old American Fletcher National Bank. How did you go from banking to become Chief of Staff for the energetic young Mayor Lugar?
Well, I was so fortunate. I had been at the bank and had an opportunity to take a leave of absence for a while to help in Dick Lugar's campaign, and he was successful. He defeated a terrific Democrat mayor by the name of John Barton, highly respected, good man, but Dick was elected. And he asked me to stay on with him as his chief of staff. I did that for 6 years, had a lung infection, and sort of had to head in a different direction because of health reasons. But to have the opportunity to work with this bright, young, honorable man who had high aspirations for his city, who cared as much about the person on food stamps as he cared about it, the chairman of the bank board. Special commitment to young people was just the best gift that ever came to me professionally.
You just kind of talked about a question I was going to ask you next. So maybe you answered this already a little bit, but when you think about Mayor Lugar and the lessons of leadership that you learned from him, what kind of really sticks out and how has it stuck with you throughout your career?
Dick Lugar was a bright man, Rhodes Scholar, was a serious man, had big dreams, and had an unusual ability to connect all the dots. He saw the relationship between struggling kids in high school or dropping out in the drug problem, how that affected the reputation of the city, the well-being of the city. He was a very inclusive man. He was elected as a Republican, but included everyone in the governing process. He attracted a lot of terrific young people to come work with him. Because of Unigov, Indianapolis went from being the 30th largest city in America to being the 9th largest city. And suddenly we were on that list of the top 10 cities in America. He had an enormous commitment to the downtown because he knew it was the place that would bring people together. He had an enormous commitment, once again, to the cultural life of the community. But through all of this was a commitment to build a great university, to build a great downtown, and to do it all with a special commitment to the well-being of kids. I always used to say he'd rather spend time with 5 high school students than 5 bank presidents. Not to disparage the bankers, but he loved being with kids. He was a teacher at heart, a man of great faith, an extraordinary work ethic, and he had the ability to bring the best out of everyone. So much of public life is based on trust, and you knew that you could trust Dick Lugar. And if he was headed in the right direction, he wanted everybody's thought to sort of strengthen where we were headed and to get the most out of it that we could possibly do. But he was one of a kind. My friend Mark Leber said he's the greatest public servant from the state of Indiana since Abraham Lincoln.
That's a pretty good comparison. Well, what you just described in terms of lessons and how he led really just, I can tell, has impacted your entire career, because what you've just described about bringing people together, caring about downtown, caring about the least fortunate, basically describes what you've been doing your whole career. So it's clear he's really been instrumental in your life.
I worked with him for 6 years, and he was as close a friend as I have had for 52 years. We had so much time together. When I was head of the United Nations World Food Program, he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he invited me to come testify before the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee on issues related to nutrition and world hunger. And he never cut me off, and I tend to maybe go on too long. But I had my friend in the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, and to have that from our relationship where it started in 1967 to how it grew year after year was unbelievable, actually.
Going back to downtown a little bit, of course, a big part of downtown's resurgence was the sports strategy that you referenced early on. And you and your peers really identified and went after the opportunity that you saw in the sports area. How did that plan actually come together?
It was my feeling, and shared by lots of folks, that for Indianapolis to thrive and to become an extraordinary place, we had an opportunity to build on our strengths. And athletics and sports were a strength. The AAU was headquartered in Indianapolis at the time. We had the opportunity to exploit, in the best sense of the French word, health, medicine, pharmacy, and then to exploit agriculture, food, and nutrition with the great strength that Purdue brought to the plate. And then to become an important center of culture, and at the same time an important center of education. So those 5 themes, with a focal point of building the downtown, of building a great university, and doing something to include and uplift kids, it was sort of a themes that fell together. But the sports thing was intended to bring important events here, sports headquarters here, sports conventions, trade shows here, then to have important opportunities to have the best program for kids, to have affirming, inclusive experiences in all sorts of things, but especially in sports. This is, I think, exceeded our expectations. We did the sports festival, we did the Pan American Games, we did the 84 Olympic track and field trials. We've had world championships in a good many sports. We've built the best panorama of sports facilities. At IU Indianapolis, or IUPUI heretofore, we built the finest natatorium in the world. And it was there for Olympic trials, for Olympic competitors, But if you and I wanted to go swim tomorrow morning, it's available for us. And all of the facilities, the velodrome, the track and field stadium, Eagle Creek for rowing, the natatorium, these are public facilities that are available for everyone. We've had, so many of the national masters championships at the IU natatorium, more Olympic trials than any place in the country. It's fascinating to me that the swimming Olympic trials will be held here this year. And incredibly creative. They'll be held at Lucas Oil Stadium. We'll build 3 pools in the football stadium. We'll have 19 events attracting 40,000 people per event. And in 1924, 100 years ago, the swimming Olympic trials were held at Broad Ripple Park. And the Olympic Games were in Paris, France in 1924, and they're in 2024, they're in Paris again. But once again, this will be a community-owned event, just like the other things we've talked about.
I can't wait to see the video footage of them putting these pools together like you described. Well, as you just described, we have an amazing lineup of events this year that our city is hosting. Of course, we just finished the All-Star game. We've got the first and second rounds of the men's NCAA tournament. You mentioned the U.S. Swimming Olympic trials. Then we'll have the Big Ten football championship at the end of the year. NFL Combine starting right now. And the list keeps going on. But with the increased competition from cities like Nashville and other cities that want to try to emulate our success, how do you think we can and are positioned going forward to continue that, build on that success that you and so many others were a part of?
Actually, when we started the Sports Corporation, we were the first in the country. Today, there are 400 of them. So the
model has been successful and copied.
Exactly right. But, we have this history of all of these events, and we've done it with great success, with typical Hoosier humility, but we've done it so that hopefully they belong to everyone in the city and the state. Everyone was invited to come help play a role, whatever that might be. So we've got a tremendous reputation around the country of being able to produce big events. We have great facilities. We need to continue to have great facilities, and they need to continue to be available and open for everyone. My hope, as the city grows into the 9 counties and maybe even a bit beyond, for a city our size to realize our ambition and our opportunities, our aspirations, everyone has to be committed to doing their piece, to have a piece of the burlap or to participate. If you live in Carmel or Greenwood, you hopefully will feel good about the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. We're the smallest city in North America with a full-time symphony orchestra. That's a big deal when it comes to recruiting people on the medical staff at IU or scientists at Eli Lilly and Company. So we need to continue to stretch ourselves so that everyone is a part of things. But we need to have great facilities, and the convention center is extraordinary. The development of the White River State Park, the natatorium, the track stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium, Gainbridge, we're very competitive. And the notion that we have, when we built everything, somebody wanted to build the basketball stadium or the football stadium or the zoo out around 465. And we've had the discipline to say, no, we're going to build them downtown in the heart of the city where they belong to everyone. Whether you live in Plainfield or Greenfield, they belong to you. So we have this wonderful tight-knit package. As I said, I can remember when we didn't have any hotels. But a couple of years ago, USA Today said Indianapolis was the #1 convention city in America. Now, whether that's exactly right or not, I don't know, but I know that's what they said. The New York Times said Indianapolis is one of 52 places in the world you need to visit. And we've really been quite adept at taking advantage of our commitment to community and to the downtown, doing it together. all available to building a great university. Visit Indy, downtown Indy, have done terrific jobs. And we've stretched, but we've found a way to do it together. We've got a Democrat mayor and a Republican governor, and they like each other, and they work well together. That doesn't happen very many places.
Right. And I remember Adam Silver, the commissioner, actually mentioning that publicly about how that does set us apart.
So we've had that great discipline to stay focused on what is important, and building a great downtown and building a great university and having the best place in the world for kids to grow up. Those are not partisan issues. Those are things that make a great city and bring people together. And the more we come together, the more we know each other and trust each other and enjoy each other. And each year, the more experiences we have in that vernacular, over time, we become quite a place.
That's right. I want to talk a little bit about a period of time for you that I know is incredibly impactful, and that's your time at the United Nations World Food Program. As you look back on those 5 years that you were doing that work, Jim, what are some of the biggest impressions or the biggest accomplishments and memories of that time period?
The United Nations World Food Program, largest humanitarian agency in the world, fed 115 million people in over 100 countries. Kofi Annan used to say, Jim, the United Nations does its best work in supporting and defining and growing the humanitarian agenda. I had the privilege for a number of years to be the U.S. representative to the board of UNICEF. And the world does come together around, nobody in the world wants a child to be hungry. Everyone wants a child to have good health and to have a good education. And these are things that are at the base of human opportunity. Republicans and Democrats, nobody wants a child to be hungry. So the work at the United Nations with the World Food Program, 18,000 employees, incredibly passionate people about doing what they did day in, day out, at great sacrifice, at great risk. More people have lost their lives doing humanitarian work for the UN than doing peacekeeping work. But I was the Secretary General's special envoy for those 5 years in Southern Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Namibia. It was just an incredible experience to have that responsibility. Life expectancy in Zimbabwe had gone from the 60s to the 30s because of HIV and drought, etc. We fed a third of the population of North Korea. For 2 years, we fed the entire population of Iraq. It was almost an overwhelming, mind-boggling experience, but the passion, the devotion people had to the work. We had 3,200 non-governmental organizations as our partners. And to hear the half faith-based, half secular, and to see the commitment people had to the well-being of their neighbor, wherever their neighbor lived, was extraordinary. The United States was always the single largest contributor, both to UNICEF and to the World Food Program. So proud to be an American. And the United States provided resources, provided food, provided medicine, because it was the right thing to do. There was a moral imperative that we don't want kids to be sick, we don't want kids to starve, and we wanted them to be healthy and to have a chance. Other countries didn't do so much, and other countries only did what they did when it was in self-interest. It was good for the United States to be perceived, rightly earned and deserved, to do what it did the way it did. But our country is so generous and is full of people with great hearts. Republicans and Democrats in the Congress sort of agreed on the World Food Program's agenda.
Wonderful, I'm sure, memories, and I know it stuck with you. We mentioned in the intro that, of course, you spent many years on the IU Board of Trustees. And as you're well aware, we're separating now the IUPUI, which we described you and Mayor Lugar were involved with going back many decades. But now we're going to have two independent campuses. We'll have IU Indianapolis and Purdue's presence here in Indianapolis. What do you think that means for the city of Indianapolis going forward?
I think the division, the separation of IU and Purdue, the separation based on and built on the last 40, 50 years of success of working together, positions both universities to do extraordinary things. Both IU and Purdue are superbly led, have been for the last number of years. IU would have, 26,000 students here. The Purdue work in science and engineering and technology, remarkable. So you have these two world-class universities. Indiana University serves over 100,000 students a year on 9 campuses. And Purdue, much the same. The Purdue schools in West Lafayette are among the best in the world. And to bring that drive and that focus and that commitment to build two world-class, great public research-oriented universities in the heart of the state capital, doing it separately, but doing with, I hope, great affection for one another, great support for one another. I'm 80 years old, and I would just hope and pray that I've got a number of years left to see how this will blossom. It will be remarkable for Purdue to bring more graduate students, more undergraduate students, to have internships at Cummins and Lilly and Roche and other places, to see the IU School of Medicine continue to have this extraordinary upward trend in research dollars from NIH and beyond. When I first got involved with Riley Hospital, there were 30 pediatricians on the faculty at Riley. Today there are 400. And Riley is one of the top 10 hospitals for children in the country. And that's based on client services, but based on research. And the research that's taking place at the medical school, the dental school, the nursing school is quite remarkable. And it will continue to grow exponentially. And by and large, the students that have gone to IUPUI stay in Indiana for their careers, a huge percentage, and almost 300,000 degrees in the last 40 years. And those folks have stayed here. And it's the next 20 years, for all sorts of reasons, are going to be the greatest in the city's history. And the separation of IU and Purdue is a major factor in that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I really believe that it may be, when we look back in 10, 20 years, the single biggest economic development project that the city can look back and say, wow, this has really made a positive impact on our city.
And I give Pam Whitten and Mitch Daniels great credit for having the ability to see the opportunity and then to structure it and head both of them in the right direction, but to be there for each other in a strong, friendly, competitive environment. But what a blessing it will be for the main institutions in our central Indiana area, for the young people that will come to school here. You know, I think about the Center for Leadership Development, this remarkable program started 50 years ago by Lilly Endowment and the IU School of Business, has now prepared 50,000 minority kids to go to college, led by Dennis Bland. I mean, these things just repeat themselves over and over again, and the things that are unique to central Indiana.
Jim, you're the consummate builder of relationships and partnerships. Well, you've described some of those today, but all to serve the greater good. Today, that seems like a lost art in the world, and certainly the world of politics, especially on the federal level. What is the path back, if you can see one, to the kind of camaraderie that marked all the good work that you and your colleagues and peers have done over the last number of decades? Do you see a path back to the working together, the bipartisanship, where we can have some optimism?
I'm hopeful. There are enormous numbers of very bright, young, talented people in central Indiana coming from all backgrounds. And to have the opportunity to come together, to work together, to know each other, to like each other, to share dreams for your community and for others, it's not very complicated. The mayor and the governor need to open the door to set the stage for being inclusive. But we have so much going for us right now. And the senior leadership of our community, major factor in letting a group of young folks over the last 40, 50 years saying, hey, we're there for you. We're going to be your partner, and you can count on us to help get your dreams done. And please, by the way, dream big. You know, we're so blessed to have the Lilly Endowment in Indianapolis, founded in 1937 by the two brothers and their father, where they simply wanted to share what they had with the larger community. Incredibly unselfish people. So when you think of, we've had good mayors and good governors. We haven't had bad behavior in the public sector. We've had extraordinary leadership in the business community and a great leadership in the private cultural civic community. We have great healthcare institutions. You know, when I was at the World Food Program, my motto was, let's do more, let's do it better, and let's do it together. And the rewards, the personal fulfillment of being a part of things like this is enormous.
Well, if we could just take the model that you've so well helped craft here in terms of working together across party lines, irregardless of party, and take that model across the country, I think, we would be making headway.
Yes, well, and you know, when Adam Silver comes as the NBA commissioner and says, hey, a Democrat mayor and a Republican governor get along, and they sort of show the way. And that's a gift to the rest of the country to show that what possible. That can produce.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, we've made it to Off the Record Speed Round, where I give you some quick questions, and you give me as quick as you can answers to those questions. So I always ask similar questions to every guest. So I'll start with some fun stuff. Your favorite movie?
Animal House.
That's a good one.
But my wife would say if I didn't say The Sound of Music, shame on me. So I don't know what the connection is between Animal House and Sound of Music, but there ought to be one.
There must be one. Favorite place to vacation?
I love to bum around the English countryside. I collect antiques, much to my wife's chagrin, and I'd rather spend 2 weeks bumming around England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales, little tiny antique stores.
Do you ever find any candlesticks?
Well, I ought to have a psychiatrist analyze why anybody would collect candlesticks, but I do collect candlesticks, silver, brass, bronze, silver plate, pewter. I've got about 1,200 of them, and why I've done that, I don't know, but I sure have enjoyed it.
Favorite musical artist?
Johnny Mathis. My wife and I fell in love to Johnny Mathis's music, and over the years, we've developed a nice friendship with him. So I love Johnny Mathis.
What is the first thing you do every morning?
Well, I usually get up twice. I get up at sometime between 4:30 and 6 o'clock and sit with my dog Brownie and have a glass of iced tea and sit there for 45 minutes to an hour thinking about who knows what, but it's maybe the most productive time of my day. So then I go back to bed for an hour or two and then get up and go to work.
Title of the last book you read, or maybe your favorite book that maybe most recently read?
I'm intrigued with the book about Ronald Reagan called The Peacemaker. It's an extraordinary story of the man's commitment to world peace. And I spend a lot of time wondering why world leaders can't have an honest, straightforward conversation. And I've been intrigued by the conversation between Gorbachev and Reagan in Reykjavik and other places. And I yearn for a way that world leaders can find a way to, our national leaders can find a way to just to talk to each other and get all the foolishness out of the way and be thoughtful about what it means to the people they're there to serve.
What food can you not live without?
I do drink a lot of iced tea, no calories, and some people think it's a little odd, but I like iced tea. I like mandolins, a little sort of cornbread cookie. I like shortbread. I usually have a cup of soup at lunch, but those, I guess, would be my favorites.
Best advice that you ever received?
Herman Wells said, Jim, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I think Herman Wells, at least in my category, is one of the 3 or 4 greatest Hoosiers of the last 100 years. And the man's commitment to build a great university that consumed his life, and he gave it everything he had. Mr. Lilly always said, if you're going to do something nice for somebody, do it in a nice way. I think that's pretty good advice as well.
Advice for a young person who wants to become a leader?
I believe that there is, Mitch always talks about the fundamental importance of trust in leadership, and I agree with him. I also believe that relationships are so important. I used to say to a young person, you ought to spend 20-25% of your time building relationships without an ulterior motive, and especially finding time to get acquainted and spend time with people who are different than you are. And when you start that in your 20s, by the time you're my age, you've had 60 years of building friendships and working with people that you begin to like each other, trust each other, know each other, and the ability then to do, Mother Teresa said we can do no great things, but only small things with great love. And so working on small things to great things over time with people you trust and know and relate to is really important.
Jim, this has been a wonderful conversation. I thank you so much for joining me today on the Indiana 250 podcast. And I want to thank you for all you've done for our city, for our state, and of course, our world. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you. My pleasure. And may I say in return, the IBJ is so important to our city. The IBJ is positive, is optimistic, is trusted, is focused on the tough issues of the day, but doing it in such a way that we see opportunity and hope for the future. And you could not overstate the importance of IBJ. Gary Dick on television it brings the best out of people, and you guys do it terrifically.
Very kind of you to say. Thank you so much, Jim.
And as my wife would say, it has the added advantage of being the truth.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks to Jim Morris, Vice Chair of Pacer Sports Entertainment, for our conversation today. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with a new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.